Welcome to Hollywood. In this video, we're going to uncover 12 haunting tales of old Hollywood actors whose lives became a real-life example of pathetic fallacy, where nature, storms, sunsets, or eerie silences mirrored their emotional downfall, tragedy, or final moments. These were stars. 1. James Dean. James Dean, the eternal symbol of youthful rebellion, met his fate on a gloomy evening in 1955, just days before Rebel Without a Cause premiered. That night, the sky was said to be overcast, mirroring Dean's own brooding energy. He was driving his Porsche Spider, ominously nicknamed Little Bastard, toward Salinas. As if nature was warning him, ominous clouds rolled across California's highways. At dusk, he collided with another car. The crash was fatal. The weather turned eerily calm afterward, as if the world itself paused in mourning. His death became a cinematic moment of pathetic fallacy, youth extinguished just as twilight swallowed the sky. His death also sparked rumors. The car was cursed. Mechanics who handled its remains often faced accidents or injuries. It was as though the weather and the object had fused into a lingering symbol of doom, just like Dean's misunderstood characters. 2. Marilyn Monroe. When Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, it was a warm summer night in Los Angeles, but inside her Brentwood home, darkness ruled. The light bulbs in her room had gone dim. Even the power flickered earlier in the day, as if trying to foreshadow something tragic. Marilyn had been America's sunshine girl. But toward the end, her life was dominated by emotional thunderstorms, betrayals, substance abuse, and psychiatric hospital stays. Her passing felt like a sudden thunderclap after years of atmospheric tension. A neighbor recalled, "That night, it was unusually silent. Even the usual coyotes didn't howl. Nature itself paused, mirroring the void left by her death." 3. Montgomery Clift. Clift's once bright star faded under storms of inner torment. After a disfiguring car crash in 1956, rain reportedly began to fall softly against the hospital windows as he regained consciousness. That weather, many friends noted, seemed to become part of his identity, always gray, always raining behind his eyes. He was brilliant, tortured, and addicted to pills and alcohol. The skies around his film sets would often become cloudy, even during summer shoots. It became something of a joke, and then, a pattern. When he died in 1966, alone in his Manhattan apartment, a thunderstorm raged across the city. Neighbors said lightning struck just blocks away. Nature, again, had spoken. 4. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's voice could break your heart, but so could her life. Known for Over the Rainbow, her own rainbow often stayed just out of reach. The day she was fired from MGM, it rained nonstop in Los Angeles. She reportedly stared out the window for hours. Her voice had once lit up the world. But off stage, she was hounded by addiction and emotional pain. During concerts in London just before her death, one show had to be delayed by stormy weather. The theater lights flickered, and she told the audience, "It's just the gods trying to drown me." Her death in 1969 coincided with one of the wettest summers London had seen. 5. Errol Flynn. Flynn was once the king of swashbuckling adventure, a man the sea adored. But his final years were filled with decline. The once sparkling Pacific Ocean he loved began turning into a metaphor, choppy, cold, and uninviting. He died in 1959 in Vancouver, Canada, by the harbor, as a cold wind rattled the window panes of the apartment. His heart gave out, and a storm moved in. Newspapers reported that a squall struck the shoreline shortly after. He had spent his last days surrounded by fog and maritime gloom. It was as if the sea, once his co-star, was weeping with him. 6. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo famously said, "I want to be alone, and the world obeyed. Her retirement was wrapped in mystery, and so was her emotional life. During her time in New York, she often walked Central Park in heavy fog, wearing dark glasses. Friends said the sky always seemed overcast when she appeared, even when the forecast had promised sun. She died in 1990, but her emotional twilight had lasted decades. Nature always seemed to follow her mood: cool winds, shadowed paths, and long silences. Pathetic Fallacy wasn't a moment in her life, it was her biography. 7. Bela Lugosi. Lugosi, the original Dracula, became a victim of his own image. Addicted to morphine and forgotten by the studios, his later years were a horror movie of depression. On the day of his funeral in 1956, the sky turned black mid-afternoon. A freak eclipse shadowed the Los Angeles sky. His fans, standing outside the chapel, swore it was Lugosi's final performance, nature's bow to the Count. He was buried in his Dracula cape, and even the clouds played along. 8. Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo, James Dean's co-star in Rebel Without a Cause, was stabbed to death in a dark alleyway in 1976. That night, the wind was fierce, knocking over trash cans and shaking streetlights. One witness described the scene as, like a ghost was angry. Mineo had struggled with his identity, typecasting, and societal rejection. He was just beginning a comeback on stage. But nature, or fate, had other plans. The alley remained cold and silent long after the crime. To this day, people report strange wind gusts when walking that street at night. 9. Rita Hworth. Rita Hworth was the fiery redhead of the 1940s. But her final years were consumed by Alzheimer's disease. As her mind faded, her home in Beverly Hills was surrounded by trees that began to shed their leaves early, months before autumn. Her daughter later wrote that birds stopped visiting their garden. It was as if nature sensed her silence. Her passing in 1987 came on a clear but unusually cold May morning. No birdsong, no breeze. Hollywood's goddess had become nature's ghost. 10. George Reeves. George Reeves, the 1950s Superman, died from a gunshot wound in 1959 under mysterious circumstances. It was late at night, and light rain had begun to fall in Los Angeles, unusual for the season. The room was dim. Friends said the rain started seconds before the fatal sound. Rumors of suicide, conspiracy, and heartbreak followed. But what remained certain was that the man who played America's strongest hero died on a quiet, drizzly night, like a sad comic book ending soaked in tears. 11. Barbara Peyton. Barbara Peyton's life was a cautionary tale. A stunning blonde bombshell of the 1950s, she spiraled into addiction and homelessness. She once stood in the sun on red carpets, but ended her life in the shadows of Los Angeles' Skid Row. Her final days were spent watching rain fall through motel windows. Her friends said she would whisper to the storms, as if they were all she had left. When she died in 1967, her body was found as thunder rumbled across the city. 12. Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney Jr., best known as the Wolf Man, became trapped in roles of horror and gloom. He drank heavily, suffered from depression, and by the 1970s, was a recluse. He lived near Lake Arrowhead, where the fog would regularly roll in, so thick you couldn't see 5 feet ahead. Neighbors said he would sit outside in a coat, just watching the mist. His death in 1973 came during a blizzard in California's mountains, a rare weather phenomenon. Nature seemed to bury him beneath cold and wind, as if hiding the man who had played monsters from ever being seen again. These were the actors whose real lives mirrored tragic poetry. Where the wind whispered their sorrows, the rain fell with their grief, and the sun set too soon. The pathetic fallacy isn't just a literary term. In Hollywood, it became a curse, or perhaps, a final scene written by nature itself. If you enjoyed this dive into old Hollywood's stormy past, don't forget to like this video if you felt the chills, comment with your favorite tragic star or moment, and subscribe to Hollywood Actions for more true stories from behind the golden curtain. Thanks for watching, and remember, behind every star is a storm waiting to fall.